Dahlia Bourgeois. Sounds like a French
Dahlia Bourgeois.
Yes. So she has a daughter who has also abilities. So it's telepathy tapes, if you come across. Dr. Hennessy Powell, who has been studying savants. So it's children who have autism, but they also have these extraordinary abilities that they, for example, have photographic memory, or they can do math really well. Or they demonstrate like language capacities that they have never come across. And so her daughter, Lido, she found out at 11 years old. So she has other children as well. But only at 11, she started speaking with her daughter through a spelling board. So these children are called spellers. And I think there's a new term that they would like to introduce, because non-speakers is incorrect, because they can speak through spelling. In a way, they're communicating
through spelling.
So they have a board because they have a difficulty coordinating their body. So they can kind of punch the letters on the board one at a time. So it takes time. There's a lot of controversy in the medical or more science field for a long time, that they're saying that the person who has the spelling board is helping them to spell. But it's unrealistic. You know, there are so many situations and things that these children know that are just extraordinary. Like,
and they can't actually say the words.
So Dahlia is learning to speak now. So she's now several years into spelling, and I believe she was able to sing before. Because it's a different part of the brain is responsible for music and singing. So she was able to sing, but not to say the words, because it takes a lot of coordination. It's a different part of the brain that's responsible for it. So they are able to spell, and they say, for example, there was one, and teachers who work with these children, with were called spellers, they are unable sometimes to tell their organizations that they're teaching, for, or sometimes parents that they're communicating telepathically with these children. Wow. Because it's not accepted. And also parents want children to talk, of course. They want them to be integrated into the world the same way that parents are, right? So
they want them to be able to adapt and fit into the rigid framework of society.
Beautifully said. Exactly. So we've got a concept how we should be, and that's what they want. That's, I guess, not just the parents, it's the society expectation, and we are trying to fit in as best we can. So these children, so for one example, that's in Kay Dickens. So Diana Hennessy Powell is a researcher, has been doing this for many, many years. And she worked in Harvard as well, and she had a very interesting story. If you can speak with her, that'd be extraordinary as well. And so one of the stories that the teacher bought biscuits, but brought one biscuit to the classroom to these children, but forgot the others in the car. And so she gave the children these biscuits in this classroom, and one boy came up to her and drew the biscuit that she left in the car because it was like a donut shape. So how could he possibly know?
Wow.
And this is just like one, example, but it's just continuously all the time. And Kai Dickens she's a producer, and they're just filming a film with these children and parents, and you really hear their stories, what parents had to go through, where the people, the experts that they go to, they say there's nobody there in their child,
like there's nobody home.
Yeah. And parents feel otherwise, and when they discover that their children actually can talk and they're in there, and more so, they are and have been communicating with them all the time. So they would actually drop things into their mind. And for example, you can't hide any food in the house because they know exactly where the food is and how many pieces are left. So you can't say, I don't have it, because the children know everything you think about.
Wow.
And when the parents start to pick up on that, they say that this feeling of this communication that is telepathic, it's more whole, more experiential. So, for example, one of the mothers says that Thanksgiving, like if I tell you Thanksgiving, you would have your own concept that came through experience. And for me, because I don't have the experience, I know what, something that I have read or watched. But for her, when she hears that concept from her child, she gets the smell, the love, the hugs, the food. She will get the whole embrace, the excitement of being together. All of that will just flood over her, not just word.
Like telepathically?
Yes. And then from that, she will put it into a word. And moreover, these children are actually meeting each other, what they call the hill.
The hill?
The hill. So they talk to each other. They sometimes even meet at a specific time. And they know each other. And then sometimes I think there were stories that in Kai Deacon's Telepathy Tape radio show that she's created on Spotify, you can listen, and YouTube, I think now. And they almost like plan to meet through parents, those who start to spell, they want to go to certain places and then meet those children that they met telepathically in this virtual space called the Hill.
It's a virtual space.
Yes, so it's telepathic. It's not virtual computer.
Right.
But
it's somewhere out there in the ether.
Conscious. It's where they meet.
And they can meet people they've never met physically before?
Yes. And some conundrums that are challenging is that some children that don't have spelling ability yet, or their parents can't get to it, or they don't know their child can have it, right? Because not all parents have their access to this particular method, or maybe they don't know about it, maybe because it's so taboo, but it's been for many decades existing. But the Speech Society has rejected it as a valid method. And also there is this pressure, for children to be able to speak. But does it matter if they can communicate?
Right.
Like if you can communicate with your child, of course you'd want to communicate in any way possible. Right?
Totally.
Sorry, I'm flooding you with information.
Yeah, no,
So you asked me this question.
You make a good point, but yeah, no, obviously it is, right? If you're a mother and you have a child that's say 3 years old and you're surrounded by other mothers who have kids in the same age, you guys typically, at least in my experience, is like the mothers are always trying to like bounce ideas off each other. How is your child doing? Figure out how my child's doing compared to all these other kids. Get them together, create a little community, and like, usually just in the society that we live in, you would expect your kids to start learning specific words at a certain age, then stringing words together at another age, and then like, okay, well now my kid's about to be 4, we got to put him in like kindergarten, and this is just what we do in this society. So it's like to step outside of that is kind of like uncomfortable for a lot of people. And if kids start to develop in new ways, like that's got to be so much more unsettling or uncomfortable for people if it's not, because it sounds just at face value for somebody who's not initiated into any of this stuff, it sounds kooky.
Yes, exactly. But these children are extraordinary. So they apparently they teach each other. So once the one child acquires the ability, they can meet on the hill and they can teach each other that skill. They have their own teachers. We can only hear from them what these teachers are. Some describe them as angel-like. Some describe them as, they come in form.
So what is it about these children specifically? Is there something that we know about them psychologically or developmentally that makes them all unique?
So it's so every child is different, just like we are. We are put into one category in school, like as we're going through. But in a way, we learn differently, we communicate differently, we pick up information through our perception differently, we mix it differently, but we are taught that we are the same, that you see the same orange as I do.
Right.
No, we don't.
Right.
So these children are so unique. That's why it's so challenging, because their physical ability differs, their cognitive ability differs, their emotional regulation differs, they physically on how they work with their body. So these erratic movements that they have when they're perceived as abnormal, they're actually trying to feel the edge of their body because they don't feel their body.
Whoa.
So when they're doing this, strange movements that look to us unsocial or inappropriate or, whatever we've learned conceptually to see, they're actually trying to literally get into their body to feel the edges. So when they're learning to spell, if somebody touches them before they start spelling, they feel more grounded and in the body, so they can then focus better and they can make that one directive movement, which takes a lot of focus and concentration. They also now do tablets. They do it on tablets once they start advancing from a board.
But is there they're all nonverbal, right?
Well, interestingly, so Dalia's daughter, Lido, she's learning now to pick up.
Okay.
So it's almost like the language working at different pathways. But of course, it takes so much effort to say something, to string that together, because it's new neural pathways. And of course, we can remap our neurology. And so it's harder. And so some of the children that parents have learned to telepathically communicate with them. So could you imagine so many discoveries? Their children, are actually there. They're very clever. They learn history from you. So you watch a film, they can talk to you about that film. You've learned something. So when you put them in the classroom, they're reading everybody's mind. So, yeah. So if they go into a proper school, they would read what the teacher knows. So taking them out of school just because of how they behave to us is actually not necessarily good. It's harder for the class management. And of course, you can't talk to the child in the same way. But, I'm not an expert in it. I'm just communicating the fascination, the extent of what we don't know about extrasensory perception and our capabilities. That's why when that came out, for me, it starts to explain some of the questions that I have that, we were not allowed to test in our scientific methodology.
Kids, before they get, like I said, before they get molded into society, when they're young, they probably have they're more in touch or more in tune with more senses, right? Like you've been into, we all know the stories of you go into a house and if the energy's off,
yes.
right? Or something doesn't feel right about this house. You can't really, it's not smell, it's not sight, it's not sound, but it's something that it's a feeling. And I always wonder, is that something that has been inside of humans for millions of years that has just atrophied with the rise of technology?
So really pertinent question. It's exactly what we are working on right now. Part of that, the baby books that I was looking into designing when our children were born, is that I found that the child is so much more alert, is what I was told, like in martial art, that they perceive things, and often we don't notice as adults, and we say, don't worry about that, don't pay attention to that, it's nonsense, how could you know? It's almost like we have a ready answer before they given us their experience or what they're experiencing, because we are busy, it's nothing wrong. It's just we are a culture that you can't hear this, you can't feel that, you can't sense that. This is, must be coincidence. I don't know, all sorts of things. But the child, if you are not paying attention and you are the authority, you are the Superman. You know, you can do things that the child can. You can walk, you can run, you can lift. You know how to, drive this car. I don't know. You do super things as a dad, right? And they are like, I want to be like my dad. Like he does these extraordinary things, and so is the mother. They're just capable, and that's why they come and repeat after us all the time.
Right.
And but they are, so the child, when they are born, their mind in the first year develops much more than it will ever develop in the lifetime of an adult.
In the first year.
In the first year. So then the child with 2 or 3 years old has more neural connection than an adult. So what happens, there is a pruning period where the neural connections get pruned. Because they're not used, so they're made, the connections are made, but because these highways are not used, they overgrow, if you wish.
Right.
So nothing goes to waste, right, in the system, because it needs to be all nourished, right, processed, and we need to run this body. And if it's
survive,
redundant,
eat, get through the day.
If it's redundant and you don't need that sensor, so like children or adults grown up in urban cities, they can't see as far, they can't hear as well. We can't mix certain sensors, and like there is a research on like children have auditory processing issues, and the 2.5% of children. It seems small, but it's a big percentage. And children who have some learning difficulties, and we know that children have learning disorders left and right now being diagnosed all over. Anyway, in Europe and the UK, it's now become so recognized that like 1/3 of the school would have these issues, and 43% of these children have auditory, processing issues. So
interesting.
But more than that, this sensory processing is, affecting how we pay attention to the world, how we process information. And if we can't process information, we shut down. So that means we are unable to develop those processes, or they are too overstimulated, or we are not, it's almost like we said, it's not normal. Do
you think it's possible to get it back later in life if you want to?
Yes. So there are studies that look into...
This is like plasticity, like brain plasticity type stuff?
Yeah. So our neurons can regenerate and can build new pathways, new experiences, like you would learn new skill. And it would just take you longer than versus to a child. And so, for example, I'm having a look at... So what we have is that because we can't integrate the sensory integration, so there's Dr. John Ayres, who is looking at the sensory integration, and it's a foundation for learning. So if we can't integrate information that's coming through our different perception, we're unable to put information together in an efficient way that I could do something about it. So then I either get distracted, that I'm not looking at it. And and what happens is, because we've got screens all the time, and we know this problem, like this is like a pandemic, right? There's a term called technoference, so like technology interfering with our life.
Right.
So infants before year 1, the data, this is US data, 1.6 to 1.6 hours children spend on the technology. The toddlers between
1.6 hours.
So
per day?
1 hour, 0.6 per day.
From 0 to 1.
Yeah, under 1, year under 1. So toddlers, 2.5 to 3 hours before they hit 2 years old. Adolescents, they spend a working day on technology, 7 to 8 plus hours. And this is a direct link, so of course, if you're on the screen, you have fewer live adult interaction. That includes us, because we also go on devices, right? Because of work and, whatever we need to do, we need to search up. I mean, I find myself, all the time thinking, they'll ask me a question, where do I go? you know. So and so that is like we don't look up encyclopedia anymore. We go how to.
It's way less work now.
Yeah,
it's so much easier to find information and to.
Yeah.
And when you're living that much of your life and spending that much of your time with your brain in that state, in that kind of like dormant lizard brain state, I can't imagine it would be good for us.
Yeah. So what happens? So you and I on the screen.
It's like
right?
it's turning us from. It feels like we're going from wolves to chihuahuas. Like we're being domesticated into this cute little animal that is helpless and can't defend itself because technology is compensating for everything.
I think we're developing other skills too, but yes, we are reducing ability to see far,
right,
to perceive nature in being like a surround sound. We're losing this spherical or 3D perception of sound. We because we get earphones as well, it degrades our navigation, but it's also a sense. Our ear and has inner ear processing, of our proprioception in space. And when we are zoomed in, like we have shores, like the horse is running. So
right.
we're cutting out part of the world.
Yeah.
And if you and I on the devices, are we talking to children?
Right.
And if we're not talking to children, they are losing out on communication. If we are not problem solving together, we're problem solving through the screen. They're not acquiring it, how to do it themselves. They're not looking for
right.
options. They're not scanning for the environment on how they can problem solve.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and even schools now. My kids are in public school and they're being put in front of screens to do their work. It's making me, I want to pull my kids out of school and homeschool them because it's sad to see that this is the way it's going. It's making it, I don't know why they do it. I don't know why. Like, do they think it's going to make it more efficient? Is it going to be able to centralize all the learning and all the testing for the kids? Is it, I don't know, but I don't think they're really thinking it through.
Because do you know what, which was fascinating to me, retrospectively starting to look at it, what is the predictor of the success of the future, on how successful the people will be in their, for example, engineering or economy or, top professions? What is the skill that is required?
No idea.
Problem solving.
Okay.
Pattern recognition.
Right.
Pattern. And we don't teach kids pattern at all.
Right.
It has to be intuitively learned. We don't teach them problem solving.
Right.
We teach them what is already how people solved problems before, but they're not always learning creatively solving through problems.
Right.
So with colleague, we worked on the designing toolkit for psychological support for long duration missions. They learned how nature problem solves. And the nature solves problems differently than we do. We use resources, but nature uses whatever resources it have. And so we were designing problem-solving toolkit for space missions, only using resources that they have, in that capacity, because you can't take so many parts. And so we had 3 astronauts from European Space Agency, and all of them, luckily, because that's the only 3 we could get together. And they were in the US and NASA, not in Europe, because they were training or training others. It's always rotation. And so one was learning on Mir station. So this very old station that obviously got decommissioned. Actually, it was decommissioned about the same time, 2000, when I was in Australia. We could see it deorbiting. And then one of them was trained on shuttle, and the other one was trained on the US. Well, there was only one transporter before Soyuz spacecraft. And so all of them, when we were giving them a problem-solving task, they all problem-solved differently because of their background.
Interesting.
Yeah, and which was fascinating. And
so how did you come up with these designs?
Yeah, so, yeah. So the idea is that I did not want to come up with something artificial, because all those books I found were artificial. So I was, yes. So this is actually a creature that lives near Japan. And it's used by architects to how to design buildings to sustain earthquakes. There you go. I know. I mean, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if you were dad and reading that underneath the book and then sharing it with other dads that you know this amazing facts?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it tells you how to use the book to benefit. And then you have this.
And this is the design you have on your shirt.
That's right. Yes, this is
the Astroblastus stellatus.
There you go. Isn't it? Both space and and underwater.
It looks kind of like a starfish mixed with a sand dollar.
Yes. So this talks about actually it is a very ancient design, and what you see is how it transports food via these little elevators or escalators to its mouth in the center. So, yeah.
So what is the idea? But of you show these images, these black and white geometric images to newborns or to kids that are within 0 to 1. And what does that do to their brain?
So they are recognizing more patterns. So our face, which is beautiful, is actually like a window, like a key to our reality here. Because it encodes all like golden section proportions, Fibonacci, fractals.
Yes.
All of that coded in your face. So you are the key on how the world is structured, nature, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, because we are nature. And that's what they're studying. So if they're exposed to more of these patterns, they would be amazing designers. They would know how nature problem solves. And they can pick up the patterns and unusual connections. It's what we teach in engineering school. We teach architects, we teach artists, we teach all the designers. So everything that you intuitively like, or I intuitively like, or we are attracted to, actually follows those laws.
Right. Interesting.
So even Large Hadron Collider, if you look at it, all of that follows the proportions. So the most amazing designs that we have come up, our ingenuity, and most famous art pieces follow those. But we do this intuitively. And it's those people because they studied that, and they're usually amazing creators. That's why we advance in technology. So that pattern recognition, but pattern recognition comes from problem solving. So you're seeing the most, so the universities for last, 15, 20 years, the idea is to cross-disciplinary work because they've noticed that there is innovation. So it's when you're bringing your novel idea into another field. And that's where innovation happens, in matching, because just like the surgeons that worked side by side and never exchange how they do the work, but they assume that the other person does it. So sometimes we solve the problem in one domain, but we haven't solved it in another. So the innovation from like one of the benefits of doing human spaceflight, because we always have to justify the budget, of why we're doing it to the public. So the surgeon was talking to, I believe, shuttle designer or rocket designer, and how the piping works, because our heart has piping too. And there was a cross-feed on how they learned to each other. So it was innovation on both parts.
Oh, wow.
So this allows, so what I wanted to do is to expose them what they already attracted. And what happened is that it seems to be cross-sections of a lot of creatures, on Earth, have these beautiful symmetries that follow, because nature does it intuitively, right? Nature just does it. So if you look at the pattern of the tree, if you look at any tree that is it called judicious? It's like leaf trees. If you look at the shape of the tree, if it's not artificially cut, it will have the same shape as the leaf. If you look from far away, it will have the same shape.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you take leaves with your children in the summer or autumn, anytime, and you would just put them together, just as if they're trees on a piece of paper, and walk away, it would look like it's a forest. Like you've painted the most beautiful forest.
That's so cool.
And if you look at any of those trees, and you are, let's say, a surgeon or a physician, you would see the intricate pattern of how vessels, pathways in our body works, because some would look more like the heart, some would look like a lung. In winter when the leaves lost their structure.
Yeah.
And it happens everywhere. But if you can see, so like if there is the systems even pick up now, like it looks like the tree spreads its. Now that we have computers, we can actually see that there is a logic, there is a pattern.
Yeah.
It just was harder to see, and the human eye can tell, but it cannot calculate it. So, and that's why we are good at pattern recognition, but not necessarily in calculational detail. But we don't need that.
Right.
We only need to know and then intuitively act on it.
So
this trains children for attention. So but the bigger part, which is what we're doing in classes with parents, I am teaching via this medium to communicate with the child, because there is assumption that the child can't communicate, but the child communicates with us all the time, and we communicate to the child. So they're much better at picking our communication than we are theirs. They're talking to us all the time, and so the parents will get like, I had no idea, they get like fascinated.
So exposing the kids to these patterns can help the communication?
It's a medium. Yes, it helps the child, but also it helps the parent, because what we're doing is I'm teaching the adult while they're watching the child, watching the images, to pick up on clues on what's happening with the baby. Because once the baby doesn't want to look, they will look away.
Right.
And usually what we do with the baby, we assume, we don't even think about it. But like if I need to go somewhere, I'll take the baby and go. But the baby might have been doing something, even if the baby is, 2 years old. We're just like, time to go. And until they start to refuse, right? And then you have to learn how to slowly get them out or give them enough time. But the idea that we are actually teaching children to have a shorter attention span, because we have a short attention span.
Right.
We never walk into, someone's office or our partner, if they're busy, and just bust in, right? We will watch. We will not be articulating to ourselves, but we would say, what are they doing? Can we intervene? Is it the right time? Shall I wait a moment? Like you're doing all of that. But we don't do that with children. And then we're teaching them manners instead of doing this right from the beginning, respecting their attention space, awareness, and their learning experience in the same way as we expect from adults.
And you think that by utilizing these things with kids at a young age and figuring out this communication, you seem to be optimistic that we can come up with some sort of like natural universal language for humanity? So there's a second part to that. Okay.
So this allows this pattern recognition, but also we're learning not to distract children. We are increasing attention span. So Microsoft study showed that our attention span decreased by 30% with introduction of computer.
It decreased by
30%, yeah. Which is really bad, in terms of it should be, helping us. But all with that attention, that means we are not able to focus and learn, right? That's kind of consequences of that. So we're unable, to dive deeper. But the innovation happens when we're diving deeper. So the next phase from that came is that I saw that the sound actually also produces similar things, which you could call mandalas, so shapes that are projected.
Yeah.
So it's
sound. Sound resonates, and the frequencies of sound. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so part of one of the projects we did is voice analysis to detect fatigue. So when you are with your family, you probably over the phone can tell how person is changed and whether they're tired or not. So we do pick up, sound information, but we just don't realize. It could be delay in speech. It might be slower. The muscles change. They get tired, and we sound differently as well. Not just cognitive delay in processing information. So what happens is if we start. So the idea is to keep the synesthesia not stopped, the ones that we're born with, not just to give it to 4% of the population that naturally currently happening, but to keep those neural pathways open.
Right.
So if we can perceive the sound, not just through hearing, but visually, and see how this, like how any of this patterns, sound, because this would sound somehow. This is actually
associated with that. You could have a visual input associated with the sound.
Yes, that's right. So then when you see pattern, you'll hear the sound as well.
Yeah.
And can you imagine that Earth has been communicating all the time? All the creatures. And I've done this one experiment, which we are now working with two producers in New York, for something extraordinary. I'm too excited about it. I'm keeping it under belt. But the idea is that we will allow this synesthesia to experience cross-generationally, so that you can go with your kids, your parents can go with your kids, or all of you can go together and have this joint experience of nature through sound, and to allow the senses to awaken. So when you walk out from that space, what we're doing, you will just start perceiving things differently, because the curiosity will awaken in you. So in year 2000, we have aircraft crashes every week. Major airlines crash every week.
In the year 2000?
Yeah. So it's that period, because that's when the cockpits got introduced, is 1999, 2000, 2001. So this is
when what got introduced?
New cockpits.
Cockpits.
We went from analog to glass. So from dials to screens. So
all
that's
the major commercial airlines did that?
Yeah. So Airbus introduced the A320. So I've learned to fly that, but in the training simulator, not an actual. I just sat with the pilots with one of the Australian airlines that now no longer exists, Ansett. There was an Ansett Australia. And also I was working for Emirates Airlines, so I sat in the cockpits when we were flying different cities. And I worked as a psychologist for crew selection. And so we wanted to transport what the pilot needed rather than what engineer wanted them to know. So I wanted to merge the two.
Got it.
I wanted to get them to communicate. And later on, once I finished my PhD, somehow I met with Marshall Aerospace team, which is in Cambridge. It's a privately owned aviation company. And I actually did get to apply all of it. And I trained, and I got electronics, avionics, wire management, avionics, all the departments that usually make a cockpit. And what they were doing, they will take an aircraft from the desert and from US. Let's say, so we were doing aircraft for the Dutch Air Force, and they will bring it to Cambridge airfield. We even had a Scorpion on the cockpit, not in the cockpit, in the aircraft.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like a real Scorpion?
Yes, from the US.
Oh, wow.
And then they strip it completely, like to the thin metal. That gets completely X-rayed, so there are no cracks. That get replenished, and then we redesign the entirety. So I was responsible for what will be seen or worked with by pilots in the aircraft. So we would then order from different manufacturers displays, and I had to integrate them so it's all one system. Oh, wow. Because from different manufacturers, you would have different color philosophy, different information presentation philosophy. There's a lot of things, so I had to work that up. And what we found in the process, because nobody was familiar with the new cockpits, but everybody was, trying to catch up in trying to sell, new equipment. We had to. They were so receptive. Considering I was very young, as a scientist, and also, although I worked with pilots, I was not really, still a youngster.
Right. You didn't have tons of experience.
No, but this was new technology as well. Mm-hmm. So they're very wise men, I would say. And so they listened, and we built a mock-up. They took an old Hercules, cut the face off, put it in the hangar because it was all in the airport, and the art department that would usually do manuals for pilots, not pilots but engineers as well, that like maintenance when they release the aircraft, and also for the aviation authority to do the checkups. They've actually built entire mock-up cardboard cockpit. They built 3 model instruments, because what you see in the cockpit has a big instrument at the back, which with all the sensors and electronics. Mm-hmm. And so the Hercules has a small nose, it's quite a modest nose versus other aircrafts. They say it's only mother can love the face of the Herc. That's what the pilots say. So what was happening is that, so we had this perfect layout, all the instruments perfect. And then I would go to speak to one department. They say, no, it has to be here. And then I would say, well, let's do design A and put it up. And so we will put the instruments, but then the electronics engineers would come and they would say, well, actually, we need to put the 2-inch connector at the back. So now we can't fit it into the cockpit anymore. So we can't move we can't move the entirety of the display closer or pull the instrument out of the dashboard. So we have to rework an entire system. So I got them to actually learn and speak, and I taught all of them human factors and cognitive engineering course on how to do human computer interaction design. And they, including managers and sales team, because then they could upsell what they're doing to companies, because they knew what they were talking about.
Wow.
And anybody can learn, because it's all, in a way, what it's also called common sense, which is not common sense. Mm-hmm. It's like when you go into a cockpit, or, when you use your device, it's perfect, right? It's easy. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't common sense when you start the design. So when you walk into the, technology space, or let's say, any machine interface, and it's intuitive, a lot of work went to it, but it looks like you've done nothing because it's all easy. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like you want to push the button, you need that information. It's all, long process of iteration. So we had like 4 or 5 iterations every time. We'll sit it, something will not work out, either for engineers or for pilots. So it's like you're an interface between all of these engineering teams. So this is to answer your first question. Mm-hmm. So that was to understand what the pilot was doing in order for it to be presented in such a way that in that one instance when they have to save the plane from crashing, they would have access to that instrument while everything else would go out. Yeah, perfect.
Oh,
yeah,
so this is
similar to, yeah. So this is an old cockpit.
That's
you can
overwhelming.
Yes, but this is not it. There's all the switches above the head as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and
go to the next one, Steve.
Well, this is the analog, and then I found a digital.
Perfect.
update.
Yeah. So this is a simulator. That one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this is and so. So I'm just trying to think which model it is. But so what you can see, with big rings. Mm-hmm. So this is a navigation display, or they call it situational awareness. So you can get your traffic, the weather, the maps, and then on the outer sides where you see the blue and yellow. Mm-hmm. So this is your primary flight display, where you get your, what the aircraft is actually doing. Mm-hmm. And you will also, in addition to that, will have secondary instruments in case the system fails. You will have usually a manual also, but I don't see it here. So sometimes they use, so then the navigator display, which the 2 concentric rings, will become a primary. So like there's a failure plugged in, like one of the instruments go out. They can all go out as well. And you can then have to fly just by the feeling.
Right. Yeah, I was in I was flying with this guy a couple of years ago on this really tiny little plane from the Bahamas back to here, Tampa.
Yeah.
And this plane could only fit 2 passengers and 2 people in the front cockpit and then 2 people in the back. It was a super tiny plane. And there was lots of storms around us. And I was just, it was like a really small, slow plane. So it was like 3 hours. And I was talking to him I'm like, what happens if you run into a flock of birds or lightning strikes us and you lose both engines? He goes, and he knew immediately. He's like, if I lose one engine, I know exactly where I can land. I can look like I already know
Exactly.
every single place around me that I can land. I know I can turn around and hit that highway that we just passed about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
If I lose both engines, I know I can land there. I can land there. Worst case scenario, I can land in that lake. Or he was like, his situational awareness was off the charts. And he made me feel comfortable. I was like, wow, we can lose both engines and we're going to be fine.
Yeah. And so that is also interesting. So because this is a way of thinking, so you can't switch that off when you get to the ground.
Right. It's like hypervigilance.
Yeah. So these, these professions, surgeons as well as, pilots.
Warfighters too. Like
Yeah,
people in war.
absolutely. Yeah. Any profession. So that becomes your train or how you think in your life.
Right.
And, but in a way you think of worst case scenarios.
Yes.
And you plan for them. So that kind of thinking, if people don't look after themselves, that could become difficult because you always in your life also look for the worst case scenario and plan for it. And also due to the profession in aviation, they work in remote places. They, had to maintain your circle because you've got odd hours. It's not your working hours. So, and you end up going to the pub because there's nothing else to do, for example. And there are a lot of depression. There's a lot of alcoholism for
PTSD.
Yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's more if people have had a stressful, something they couldn't recover from experience, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that would be from the wartime, or surgeons could have that, emergency personnel who are doing emergency, so that is, it's very big problem, PTSD. I mean, it's not necessarily related to pilots because it's unless they had an accident that they had to then fly from, or a personal traumatic situation.
Well, there's so many stories, famous stories of pilots, commercial airline pilots, falling into drug abuse and alcoholism and things like this.
Yes. Yeah. It's because they don't have, well, not always, but they may not have, let's say, if they're not actively doing this, because, if we're in our life, if we're balanced in our, social, personal, physical, emotional, intellectual belief system and values, if we're not touching all of that from time to time, holistically, then something will get out of balance. It's sort of like you have to, it's like a riding, a wave. You need to be, once you've got a calm moment, you need to, go dive under the water, enjoy the scenery, go up, enjoy the sun. When it's stormy, keep it steady.
Right. How could you have that? How could you have that balance when your job is to fly all over the country or all over the world every single day and be so detached from, if you do have a significant other or children or anything like this, that's going to be a huge strain on you.
Well, it's the case in few professions, including, people who work 24/7, their schedule. Sometimes they have night shifts or extraordinary type of environment that seems normal to them. I mean, we choose it, but we don't know what that means later in life. Like we could choose to be a surgeon, we could choose to be a pilot, we could choose to be an emergency, nurse or something like that. But you don't know what comes with the job. It only then, when you're already in the job.
And the crazy thing is people will pick these or decide which one of these dreams to follow early on in life, strictly on looking at it through the lens of money.
Yeah.
And you're right, like what career is going to earn me the most money or the most success or the most fame? And they don't consider any of these other things that could send you down a psychological black hole spiral.
Yes. Well, I think in the outright, the humanity is optimistic, in the outlook. So we see only what we can imagine right now, or what the picture is being painted, and we're very trustful. So this touching these 2 points about the, depression that you mentioned, and also, choosing the professions or what we are expected to do, what we need to do. So depression is actually an epidemic. It's a big problem, not just for pilots or, other professions, but the World Health Organization it has very, very sad numbers if we look it up. And it's something like 250,000 diagnosed every year. And so there are millions of people who are that, but they're also parents. These people, so can you imagine their children are suffering from what state is the parent is.
Right.
But in the UK and in the US, similar numbers. The women and fathers and mothers of newborn children suffer from postnatal depression, both.
Really?
Yeah, 45 to 50%.
I've never heard of the father suffering from that.
Yes, so there's both, because the life changes so much, and it's an expectation. Sometimes people feel, oh, well, that's what motherhood or fatherhood is.
Right.
So, and especially in men, it would be hard to admit because it's not admitted otherwise, so it's not known in public, right? So you're meant to be coping well. Like you're a father, you're a man, you're a holder of the family. I don't know, like whatever we have put onto ourselves, the expectations that we meant to be a certain way.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like if you're raising a kid and you're stressed and you're sleep deprived and you're going crazy, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to quit on your kid?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to fight through it? Like, it's the same thing. Like, the kid learning to walk. Well, my kid's taking too long. He's crawling, but he's not walking. Are we just going to give up and decide, oh, he's never going to walk? It's like one of those things where you just like, it's a weird thing where you have no choice but to figure it out, I feel like.
Yes.
If you're a parent.
Yeah. But that's interesting, isn't it? That almost like a different type of schooling that comes to you with children.
Yeah.
If finding out who you are, what you're capable of, and what your partnership, what you are as a team. And
what is this?
Yeah.
In the United States, approximately 21 million adults experience at least one major depressive episode per year.
Could you imagine 20 million? So.
Well, I feel like. Again,
280 million, and this is diagnosed.
I would imagine. Oh, this is diagnosed.
Yeah.
So 21 million. I mean, I experience depressive episodes all the time. Not all the time, but per year. But it's like life is a roller coaster. You know what I mean? And you're the chemicals in your body, the hormones in your body are constantly fluctuating all the time, depending on your diet, your sleep, your work, if you're traveling or not. There's so many factors that go into this.
The youth is terrifying, because the bigger problem in youth is that it's one of the major causes of suicide.
I have this thing that happens to me almost every year where when the winter starts, I have this unexplainable sadness for like a day or two. I'll tell my wife, I'm like, I don't know what it is. I feel sad today.
But it's good that you're aware.
There's no reason. I can't come up with any external influences that could be contributing to that. But it happens to me every once in a while. And I don't know what to do about it, but it eventually subsides, and I'll do something, and I'll figure out a way to like either go for some crazy long run or work out and stress my body until I can't think about it anymore, and eventually it goes away.
Well, that's good. So the biggest part is to recognize it and articulate it. And often we're told that it's not appropriate, to think that you have that ability, you have that feeling, or you have that sensation to articulate, because it's not accepted in the circles, like depending on where you work. So, let's say surgeons or pilots, they have to just show up to work. And as a parent, you just have to show up, every morning, right? Or every night, wherever hour, of the 24 hours you'll get to be pulled on the spot, you have to show up, right? So, and I find that this, having the tools to cope with it. So in space psychology, coming to the topic of the very beginning, is the most important part is prevention. Because if we are packing for Mars, we cannot take all the medications with us, right? We cannot have, pack the aircraft with all possible medical aid. So you have to work for absolute prevention ahead of time. So, and usually you'd find that people like pilots, like surgeons, like astronauts, cosmonauts, they are very highly motivated people. They will always be ahead of the game, ahead of their, what is happening with them, just like what you're describing. I just realize, okay, what am I going to do about it? So you have a tool set. So you said, I'll go for a run, or, I don't know, take it easy for the day, or maybe find what has motivated me before, look what it is about, and I can't find it. Okay, so I feel it. Okay, I got it. I've registered. It's okay. I know I have passed this before. What I have done that helped me, for example, to overcome. Right. But also, until you went through that symptom, you can't recognize it in other people.
Right.
You can't articulate it to other people. And often those people cannot articulate it to themselves as well. They see something odd, but they feel out of place, but they don't know how to work with that or what language to use. And that's what telepathy helps. Actually, right. Talking about the depression earlier, do you know what's on the opposite spectrum of depression? Do you know what can cure depression?
What can cue it?
Yeah, cure it.
Oh, what can cure it?
Yeah. Or what can we...
remedy it?
Prevent it. It's probably better. What do you think?
Drugs.
Yes. I mean, that's what we've been, the society. It's usually, like, even when I wake up in the morning and I feel groggy, for example.
Yeah.
I don't want to go and do breathwork exercise, which will actually have a much better effect if going for a, cup of coffee or going for a run, right?
Breathwork.
Well, breathwork is one, but what's on the opposite side of depression is curiosity.
Oh, that's the opposite of depression?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Well, think about this. So people who are, what happens when we are starting to get the symptoms? What happens to us?
When we're starting to get the depressive symptoms or the curiosity symptoms?
No, when we're starting to get the symptoms of depression. How do we feel? What happens?
It's cascading. It affects everything. It affects your thoughts. It affects your physiology.
Yeah.
It affects the way you communicate.
Yeah. And you just...
the way you eat. Sometimes people stop eating.
Yes. But you are generally become disinterested. You lose your habits. You start... you stop asking questions in a way. You kind of start to hide and almost like close in all of your perceptions slowly. And you are becoming kind of covered, like almost under a cloth of this. Everything becomes gray, if you wish, through all of the sensors. So suddenly everything loses color. And you lose interest. You lose interest in food. Even if you're given, you don't perceive that food, right? You lose interest in conversation. Everything seems to be not interested, and so on. So... and what I have, when I was looking at it, I was shocked because I was interested in, what happens with this postnatal depression.
Yeah.
What happened? You've got this most precious, extraordinary gift, that you possibly actually really wanted. Right. And now you don't know what to do because you can't go back.
Yeah.
Right?
How does nature make it so to where your mother could be depressed after something like that?
This is not the case it's not as prevalent in non-urban, let's say, in traditional societies.
Oh, really?
Of course.
In native cultures or like indigenous cultures?
Because you're not told you can't co-sleep. You're not told you have to work and go earn money.
Oh, right.
Right? You've got your bigger family to support you. You've got your sisters. You've got your, aunties. You've got your parents, grandparents.
You don't have the stress of society.
Yeah, your task is, what you have in your hands. You still have to earn food and, you have to look after the house, but the child is not disassociated from your life.
Right.
You sleep together, you eat together, you cook together, you go in the field together. It doesn't mean it's, like everybody has a perception what is better, right?
It's probably not natural to carry a child for 9 months and then to all of a sudden have to go do something else and have somebody else raise your kid 90% of the time. That's probably, I can see how that could be really
But also, we are taught that we should be a certain way when we are mothers or fathers.
Right.
The family should be that way.
You feel anxiety.
The children should sleep, that they should be like they should sleep apart and, they should behave, they shouldn't shout, like, I don't know, like, and they shouldn't be affecting the vibes.
And when something goes wrong, you're on Google. Why is my kid doing this? Oh my God, your kid has this disorder, this laundry list of things wrong. Go see a psychiatrist, give him this drug, medicate your kid with these drugs.
Yeah. So, and when I started looking, I thought, oh my God, the questions in the depression scale questionnaire is basically how curious you are still about life.
That's fascinating. And how would one go about becoming or fixing their depression with curiosity? Like, how do you hack that? Is there a way?
Well, I like to go, like, we'll also come back to this question about adults, right? It's basically nurturing what they're most interested in and going back to that. And this would be our first port of call to see that they stop doing hobbies. This is when it's starting to become
when
daunting.
You stop doing hobbies.
Yeah, when you stop doing, like that balance that we talked about earlier of, roundedness of our life.
Yes.
But with children, we're constantly telling them what they should be interested in. And we are, in a sense, slowly killing their curiosity. We're telling them what they should be paying attention to. We're telling them what they should be studying. That's what school does. They're not teaching them through experience and discovery through their senses. They're teaching them the curriculum. And it's not bad teachers. Yeah, it's not.
No, it's not a system.
It's just because we have to level up, right? And we know there are some teachers that, paid so little. They're doing extraordinary work and they ignite children. But there's less and less space and time to do that because they have to do all this electronic tick marks and before they have to do marking papers by hand, but now there are other pressures on them. So it's not for the lack of teachers, but it's how they're taken out and what the expectations is. So like what I've experienced with my children is that the school was training children to do the exam that they didn't need to do the exam for. It was to show how well the teachers and the school performs in the entirety of the country. So they spent an entire year training them to do well in the exam, not teaching them something valuable and engaging curiosity, but so they could perform to the exam that they didn't even need to do, that they were not marked, to go further.
It's just to mark. That's terrible.
But they have to also, like in a way, if you can imagine, it's KPI, right? In terms of performance measurements of how do you gauge on how well, they need to measure it somehow. That's the best so far the system has to do it.
Right.
Because we don't know how to measure how curious is the child. We can only measure it when they're depressed.
Right.
Right? So this part of this work for the new generation, what I'm interested in is that how do we keep the synesthesia progressing?
Homeschool.
Yes, homeschool, and a lot of people choose to do that. Another part is that how do we ourselves stop falling into our own concepts? How we keep questioning, should we do this? Is it something, what is this concept? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do it this way? Why do we, like the children, I don't want to do it. Why do I have to do it?
Right.
Do we ever stop and ask, like, why?
Right. Well, like this is typical toddler questions that I get from my toddler all the time. Like, Daddy, why do you have to drive a car?
Yeah.
Like things, like basic things that I'm like,
good question.
Huh.
Yeah.
Let me get back to you on that. I don't know.
Well, this is it. They allow us, this. So once parents, went through these 6 months, I do the 6 weeks course with the methodology for the newborns. They ask me, what else can I learn? I don't want to, now fall into the trap of society or my own concepts. I want to be refreshing because they feel the engagement, they feel communication, they feel reawakened, that they're with the child. And so I've now progressed into the next kind of level. It's looking in what children are reawakening in us, because we were children. Yeah. So we can actually remap those curiosity, because if I met you probably, I don't know, in the playground when you, I don't know, 6 or 9, I don't know, 12, we would have been different people. We possibly wouldn't even recognize each other right now, you know, with how much excitement or how much, you know, what we wanted to do, how free we were to choose it and not to consider, you know, everybody else around us, what we want or not want to do. And how much more innovative we were in our, you know, I don't know, picking up and problem solving was very different.
Yeah.
So this kind of next level is looking how can we engage the child and adult together, not through the device. Devices are helpful, right? At some point, we cannot wipe them out. It's just how can we make this into something that is helpful?